to show you how to use Google Colab. What is Google Colab? Okay, if you're a Python programmer, in a particular beginning Python programmer, you need to be using the same tool that what we use in business and create this, but it's got a bit of a history to it, but they provided you with a free Colab environment to run what are actually called Jupyter notebooks. Now, let me explain some of this. Okay, first of all, let's just go back to the beginning here. So if we go to this website, colab.research.google.com. Okay, what is this? Well, Google has put what are called Jupyter notebooks online. Now, Jupyter notebooks have been popular with Python programmers, in particular data scientists, for quite a long time because it lets you run Python code in a browser. Why is that important? For one thing, it will do graphics. So, don't use VS Code, don't use whatever other tool that you have on your smartphone or whatever. Just use the browser. A modern computer really is nothing more than the browser. So anyway, everything else you don't need. Okay, let's go here. Click a new notebook. Okay, what has this done here? We've now created a notebook and it saved it on my Google Drive and it's called Untitled 11. So this gives me a place to write Python code. Let me change the name of it to, using Colab. We can put in here Python commands. We'll just say 3 times 2. Click this. You'll see it takes just a moment to start because Google has given you a virtual machine. It's called the Google Compute Engine backend, and it's starting it up for you. Okay, I made a syntax mistake here. But anyway, the point is that it runs code right online. Now, Google Colab is free, but let me explain to you that people that are building machine learning models can also use this because look at this. If we go to edit notebook settings, see, we can pay for what the big boys use. You can pay for these NVIDIA chips. See this? T4 GPUs. These are the AI, artificial intelligence chips that OpenAI and so forth are using. So just wanted you to know that Google Colab is free, but you can use it if you need an extremely large Python environment as well. Okay, well, we don't here because we're just learning Python, right? Now, before I show you some more of this, there are some things you need to know as well. For example, you need to be putting your code into GitHub. There's no way around it. I see Python programmers taking screenshots and putting them on Facebook. We don't do this in business. We use GitHub. For example, go look at GitHub and go look at Twitter. Everyone uses GitHub. Twitter has all their stuff there. See, they got 100 repositories. Okay. All this stuff they have, and you can go in there and look at their code. You can make copies of it. This is how you make your code public and available to the world. It can be private, but you put it here so you can share it with other people. And also, you're building up your resume. As you're writing computer code, you need to save it somewhere. Now, look at here. For example, Google, you might know that Google Chrome is an open source project called Chromium. See if we can find it here. Chromium. Just somewhere. GitHub, Google Chromium. There it is. Well, they take the name Google off of it, which they should, since it's open source. This is the Chrome browser. Now, Microsoft has copied this and modified it, and they call their browser Edge. But you could run the Chrome browser, but this is where Google puts it. The entirety of it's here. You know, there's a landing page. It's always called readme.md. MD means markdown. We'll talk about that in a minute. But then here's their code. For example, here's some Python code. Click this. We can see the code and so forth. So anyway, look. So here is the GitHub for my school. So see, I've got these folders here. I already have a GitHub set up. So for example, remember this, okay? So go over back to Colab. Now you've done your programming work. You've written a program, multiply 3 times 2. Let's go save it. Then we can show it to other people and have them comment on it and so forth. Although they cannot update it, they can only check it out and see it. GitHub doesn't let you directly update someone's code. It's your code. But anyway, so we go here, we do File, Save a copy in GitHub. See, now it took the name. Now I've got a bunch of repositories. So I'll pick this one repository. See, so the first thing you're going to need is to make a GitHub repository and use some name that will mean something in the future. Because remember, you're going to use this, show this to employers, universities. So use a name that means something. And remember, it's permanent. So we're going to call it, I just call it class. I think I have a folder like that. Click this. Okay. Now there it is in GitHub. So now you can share this URL, see, with people, but then you can also click this, open in Colab. So people can look at your Python code and then run it online. Now let's talk about some of the things here. For example, okay, what is Colab? Okay, now look here, if I click plus, that means I want to write more computer code. I click plus, we'll say x equals 2, and then x times 3, something like this. That's code, okay? But we can also put in here documentation, text, very important. So inline here, now when I click this plus text button, okay, this gives me a little text box. Now you need to know Markdown. What is Markdown? Markdown is the syntax that's used in many places, including GitHub. Like, for example, you put, you can look up cheat sheets for Markdown, but here we're going to say, here's a heading. So what does Colab do? See, now I'm typing this on the left. I'm using Markdown syntax. Markdown is like HTML, but simpler. HTML is quite wordy and long. So anyway, so what does Colab do? Okay, so these, I'm gonna put a star. This makes a bulleted list. These are Jupyter notebooks. Jupyter Notebook lets you run Python code in a web browser. You don't need to install anything on your machine. You just need a browser. And you can share code with other people and you can get to it from all your devices. Okay, now the Jupyter Notebook is superior over command line, black and white Python because it does graphics. Jupyter does graphics. Now that's only going to be important for those of you who want to get into data science and machine learning, where you're going to create charts. If you're just writing Python to process files, that's not as important. Okay, so what is this environment? I need to show you, for example, here. Now what have we got? We got 2 lines of code. I'm going to click one more here, plus. Now, if we do this, that exclamation mark means enter the bash shell. Now this part you might not know and you might not need, but the command prompt on Ubuntu, Mac, Unix, everything but Windows is the bash shell. The bash shell is Unix. It's basically this. For example, I can run bash shell commands. I can say ls list. It is worth you learning something about bash shell. See, Google has given us some sample data here. Interesting. So let's do ls sample data, see what's in there. There's some data for some training sets. Now, why might you need to know about this bash shell command? Because look, for example, here, let's go look up here and see if I got some CSV. Let's see, CSV file. Here you go. Click raw. Okay. When you go to GitHub and you look at data, I'm looking at a CSV file. It's all formatted, nice row and column, but you need to look at it in raw format to work with it in Python code. Now, it takes a little bit of effort to synchronize your Google Drive with Google Colab. It's far easier just to do this. I can say wget. The one bash command you should learn is wget. That means go out and download a file. I'm going to download that student's file and have it here. See, I use wget. So make another code cell, ls star. Again, these are bash commands. You should learn bash, but you don't really need it for Python. You need to know at least how to download a file. So one bash command is cat, meaning cat to the screen, copy to the screen. All right, so there we go. So again, now let's make a new cell. So notice when I click here, click code cell, and it goes below the one, below the one above it. So we have here something new, new equal A. Okay, we want that code to be moved to the top. We click this. Okay, now we click this arrow to run individual commands, individual Python commands. We click here, runtime, run all to run the entire notebook. See? Now, the other thing too is if you are using Python on your own laptop, desktop, you set it up, you have to deal with this virtual environments and all this getting pip packages installed and so forth. Everything you're going to need is here. But if we do need to add something, for example, all right. I mean, we've already got, Google has already loaded up pandas, but we could say pip install, let's just pick something here, pandas. and see if you were to come up and you need to use some Python package that no one's using a lot, it might not be here. So you do pip install, it will add it to the virtual environment. Now remember, this is a virtual machine in the cloud. It goes away when you quit using it. It saves your data on your Google Drive. See, file, save a copy in Drive, okay? But it doesn't save the environment. So when you run this, if for some reason you needed to add a Python package, if you came back later, it would be gone. Because look here at the bottom, see this completed 652. This is my this is my executions. This is the history of me running this code on Google's Colab virtual machine. So that's it. Now, sharing. You can share your notebook with other people, but they're not going to be able to run it unless they have Google accounts. And everyone's got a Google account pretty much. See, we could add someone in here, right? Give them authority to edit it. But then if we do this, if we say, okay, let's see, let's share it with only people with, okay, anyone with the link, copy link can be a viewer. Now, if we go copy this, paste it now, someone can see that, but look, I'm already logged into Google because it logged me in, but you won't be able to see the screen because I'm moving into a different browser for a minute. But if I put it into a different browser where I have not logged into Google, it's going to ask me to log into Google. But everyone has a Google account, so not a problem. But this goes back to my first point, which is you should be sharing code through GitHub. GitHub is where people in business, and I am a programmer in business. I work as a programmer. I'm retired. I'm teaching programming now for free, mainly to teenage children online, and mainly to Ukrainian teenage children. But anyway, so you need to share your code through to GitHub. There are other ways to do it, but this is how we do it in business because GitHub is the way people can collaborate. A whole team can work on one GitHub project and people can check out pieces of it. Say, I'm working on this piece. It's blocked for changes. You check it out and you check it back in. That's a version control system. It's the original one. All right, anyway, I hope that's helpful. So try out Colab. It should run on a smartphone, a tablet, anywhere you got a browser, right? On a phone, you could still use it. The keyboard might be a little bit small, but it will work there. So good luck.